62 distinct pieces of paper, 62 varying levels of artistic ability, from the scribbled haste of a 6-year-old to the more careful, defined lines of a preteen. They used crayons, colored pencils, whatever was on hand in a busy classroom. If you look at them individually, they are just children's drawings, crudely rendered figures, strange shapes in the sky. But when you lay all 62 of them out on a floor, side by side, a terrifying mosaic emerges. They are all drawing the exact same thing. In the annals of the unexplained, mass sightings are rare. Mass sightings involving dozens of unimpeachable witnesses are almost non-existent. We like to dismiss the testimony of children. We say they have active imaginations, that they are prone to confabulation, that one dominant child can influence a group into believing a lie. But 62 children, separated into different rooms, asked to draw what they saw without conferring with one another, do not produce identical hallucinations. They do not simultaneously concoct the same nightmare scenario featuring the same silver craft and the same horrifying, non-human entities. Something landed in the schoolyard that day, something that traumatized dozens of children and baffled the world's leading experts on childhood psychology. It remains one of the most substantial, irrefutable, and deeply unsettling close encounters in human history. Welcome to Frequency Unsolved. Turn back the clock to September 16th, 1994. We are outside the capital of Zimbabwe, Harare, in a small agricultural town called Ruwa. The location is the Ariel School, a private primary school catering to a mix of local families and the children of international farmers working the surrounding land. By all accounts, it was a perfectly average Friday morning. The southern hemisphere, spring, was setting in, bringing with it a blistering sun that baked the red earth of the school grounds. The air was dry, smelling of dust and eucalyptus. It was the kind of bright, unrelenting daylight where nothing can hide, where shadows are short and sharp. At 10 o'clock in the morning, the bell rang for mid-morning break. Hundreds of children, ranging in age from roughly 5 to 12 years old, streamed out of the classrooms and onto the expansive playground. The playground itself is important to understand. It wasn't a manicured suburban lawn. It was vast, bordering on the wild African bush. Beyond the swings and the playing fields, the grass grew tall and dry golden brown whips that would rattle in the wind. Beyond that was a dense thicket of mahogany trees and thorny acacia. There was a strict boundary line that the children were forbidden to cross the edge, where safety ended and the untamed bush began. On this particular morning, the children were entirely unsupervised. Every single teacher, plus the headmaster, was inside the main school building for a mandatory faculty staff meeting. The adults were insulated behind closed doors, discussing curriculum and schedules, completely unaware of the drama unfolding just a few hundred yards away. For the first few minutes of the break, it was normal chaos. The sound of hundreds of children laughing, shouting, kicking balls. A cacophony of innocent energy under the hot sun. Then the atmosphere shifted. Later, the children would struggle to articulate this moment. It wasn't just that they saw something. It was that they felt something change in the air pressure. A heaviness. A static charge that made the hair on their arms stand up. A few of the older children, playing near the boundary of the bush, were the first to notice it. They looked up, shielding their eyes against the glare. Coming out of the bright sky were three objects. They weren't airplanes. They weren't helicopters. The children described them as flattened discs, gleaming silver like polished stainless steel. They moved with impossible smoothness, gliding silently without the roar of engines or the chop of rotor blades. They didn't fly in a straight line. They darted. They would hover perfectly still, then instantly accelerate to another point in the sky, almost as if they were blinking in and out of existence. One of the smaller discs broke away from the formation. It began to descend slowly, heading toward the thick brush just beyond the prohibited boundary line of the playground. The children, a mixture of curiosity and growing dread, began to gravitate toward the fence line. The normal noises of the playground began to die down, replaced by a murmur of confusion and fear. The silver object dropped below the tree line. They heard a sound then, not a mechanical noise, but a hum, low frequency, like a vibration you feel in your teeth more than you hear with your ears. The bravest among them pushed right up to the edge of the tall grass. They could see it now. The craft had landed in a small clearing among the thorns. It was sitting on the ground. It was real, it was metallic, and it was absolutely silent. It's the silence that many of them remember most vividly decades later. The birds had stopped singing. The insects in the grass had gone quiet. The 100 or so children gathered at the edge of the bush had stopped talking. The world seemed to be holding its breath. Then the impossible happened. On top of the silver disc, a figure appeared. It didn't walk out of a door. It was simply suddenly there. The descriptions given by the children were horrifyingly consistent. It was a small being, perhaps 3 or 4 feet tall, roughly the size of the younger children watching it. It was dressed in a tight-fitting, completely black bodysuit that seemed to absorb the intense sunlight rather than reflect it. It had a scrawny neck and an oversized head, but it was the face that burned itself into their memories. It had a pale complexion, almost gray. It had no visible nose, just 2 small slits, a tiny, thin line for a mouth, and then the eyes. They were enormous. Massive, oval-shaped pits of absolute blackness that wrapped around the sides of its skull. There were no whites, no pupils, just a void. They were eyes that didn't just look. They seemed to absorb everything they saw. Panic began to ripple through the crowd of children. The younger ones, the 5- and 6-year-olds, began to cry. Some thought these were demons, creatures from local folklore called Tokoloshi, come to eat them. The older children were frozen, caught between the terrifying reality of what they were seeing and the instinct to run. The entity moved down from the top of the craft. Again, the children reported something deeply unsettling about its movement. It didn't walk like a human. It didn't seem to take steps. One child described it as if the being was glitching. It would be standing in one spot, and then, instantly, without seeming to traverse the space in between, it was standing 3 feet to the left. It was jerky, unnatural, like watching a video with missing frames. It moved away from the craft toward the children. It stopped just a few yards from the terrified front line of students. Then another identical being appeared at the back of the craft. The first being seemed to notice the children's panic. It paused, its massive black eyes scanning the crowd. What happened next is the most controversial and profound aspect of the Ariel School Incident. It is the element that elevates this from a mere sighting to an interaction of profound consequence. As the children stared at this being, locked in a gaze with those endless black eyes, they began to receive information. It was not spoken language. The creature's thin mouth never moved. There was no sound. It was described by the witnesses as telepathy, a direct injection of thoughts, images, and emotions straight into their developing minds. It was intrusive and violative. The children felt a sudden, overwhelming wave of despair and terror that wasn't their own. In their mind's eyes, they saw flashes of apocalyptic imagery. They saw the earth, but it was dead. They saw barren landscapes stripped of trees. They saw the sky choked with pollution. They felt a profound sense of suffocation. The message was conceptual, but crystal clear, translated instantly into something a child could understand. Humanity is destroying the planet. You are killing the world with technology. You must take care of the earth or it will die. One girl, 10 years old at the time, described it later as feeling an intense, horrible sadness, a feeling that the world was ending and that these beings were profoundly disappointed in humanity. It was a warning delivered without a single word. A psychic scream about ecological collapse beamed into the minds of innocents on a sunny playground. The interaction lasted perhaps 10 or 15 minutes in total. The being turned away, moved back to the craft with that same impossible glitching motion, and disappeared inside. The craft lifted silently, hovered for a moment, and then vanished into the blue sky at incredible speed. The spell broke. The silence shattered into 100 screaming voices. The children stampeded back toward the school building, a wave of hysterical, terrified humanity crashing against the doors of the faculty meeting. The teachers, annoyed at the interruption, emerged to find pandemonium. Children were sobbing, shaking, some catatonic with fear. They were babbling about small men and silver ships and the end of the world. Initially, the response was exactly what you would expect. The teachers dismissed it. Mass hysteria, they said. Someone saw a plane and scared the little ones. They tried to calm the children down, sent them back to class, and tried to resume a normal Friday. But the children wouldn't stop talking about it. The fear was too genuine, the details too consistent. Over the weekend, parents were subjected to the same terrifying stories. By Monday, the school realized they had a crisis on their hands. Word reached Cynthia Hind, Zimbabwe's leading UFO researcher. She arrived at the school and immediately recognized the gravity of the situation. She realized that if these children were allowed to talk to each other, their stories would bleed together. She needed to isolate their individual testimonies. She arranged for the children involved, 62 of them, to be separated. She gave them paper and crayons and asked them to draw what they saw. This brings us back to those 62 pieces of paper. The undeniable consistency, the silver discs, the figures in black suits, the enormous wraparound black eyes. The story broke internationally. The BBC sent a crew. But the most significant arrival was that of Dr. John Mack. John Mack was not a fringe lunatic. He was a Pulitzer Prize-winning author and the head of the Department of Psychiatry at Harvard Medical School. He was a man with everything to lose by associating himself with UFOs. But he had taken an interest in the phenomenon of alien abductions, approaching it not as a believer, but as a clinician studying trauma. Mack flew to Zimbabwe. He spent days sitting on the floor with these children, interviewing them one by one, using his decades of experience to assess their truthfulness. He looked for signs of deception, for rehearsed stories, for the influence of pop culture. He found none of it. What he found were children suffering from genuine post-traumatic stress. He listened as they struggled to describe the telepathic communication, the feeling of having their minds invaded. He watched as their voices trembled when they talked about the big black eyes. Mack realized that these children were not speaking with the typical vocabulary of science fiction. They were describing a raw sensory experience. They didn't say aliens. They said strange little men. They didn't say telepathy. They said it felt like he was putting thoughts in my head. In a BBC documentary filmed at the time, Dr. Mack stated on camera, "I would say that the description of these events by these children is better than the description by adults because it's unfiltered. The quality of the way they talk about it. It's the quality of someone talking about something that actually happened to them." He concluded that the children were telling the truth. They believed what they were saying because they had experienced it. He staked his professional reputation on the sanity and honesty of those 62 children in Ruwa. The Ariel School Incident is unique because it lacks the usual escape hatches for skeptics. It wasn't late at night. It was broad daylight. It wasn't a lone, drunk farmer. It was a school full of children. It wasn't a fleeting glimpse. It was a 15-minute landed encounter with multiple entities. But perhaps the most compelling evidence isn't what happened in 1994. It's what is happening today. Those children are now adults in their late 30s and 40s. They are scattered across the globe, lawyers, doctors, accountants, parents themselves. They have nothing to gain by maintaining this story. In fact, many of them prefer not to talk about it, still burdened by the trauma of that day. Yet when they are interviewed, not one of them has recanted. Not one of the original 62 witnesses has come forward in the 30 years since to say, "It was a prank," or "we made it up," or "I don't really remember." When they speak about it now, as adults, the look in their eyes is the same look Dr. John Mack saw in 1994. It's a look of profound disquiet, a look that says they know there is something else out there, something that watches us, something that can land in a schoolyard on a sunny Friday and put the weight of a dying world into the minds of children. They're living proof that something happened in Ruwa, something that broke the rules of our reality. And whatever those beings were, whatever message they were desperately trying to convey about our future, they left 62 messengers behind who have never forgotten. The sun shone brightly that day in Zimbabwe, but those children saw the darkness that lies just beyond the edge of our perception. And once you see those eyes, you never truly stop seeing them. But this is just one story from the shadows. If you want to dive deeper into the unexplained, I have another file waiting for you on the screen right now. It digs into a mystery that is even more disturbing than the one you just heard. Click it now and let's continue the investigation. Until then, check your locks and keep the lights on.